I'm listening.
Sweetheart, let me handle it.
The Boogeyman is the new summer horror film based off the Stephen King short story, an adaptation of Stephen King's The Boogeyman. That was the IMDb summary, so I guess we'll just leave it at that. I didn't know much about this film. I remember seeing a teaser, I think, for it during the Super Bowl. It could have maybe been the NBA playoffs. I can't really remember, but I remember seeing a teaser and I'd be like, oh, that looks somewhat interesting. It looks a little spooky. The idea of the boogeyman, or just saying boogeyman, is kind of silly. But I will say, growing up, when I would think of the boogeyman, I would think of those times when like you're in your basement and you have to go upstairs and you turn off all the lights and you run up the stairs as fast as you can. It feels like something might be grabbing at your legs. That feeling of like heebie-jeebies. That was my feeling for the boogeyman growing up. And horror films have been great lately. So I thought, why not? Let's give the boogeyman a shot. Let's see how the boogeyman can be. And unfortunately, it's very forgettable. It feels very generic. And there's not much to say about this film. And that's the biggest problem with the film. It feels like it lacks creativity sometimes, but there are times where they show some flashes of creativity, and the film could actually be somewhat fun. The boogeyman, the whole presence of him, he can't be in light. So there are some sequences that bring that into play, and it's a lot of fun. And there's some shots that I actually really like. There's some in the trailer where you only can see his eyes like in the darkness. So throughout the film, when you're watching these sequences that are mostly in the dark, you're kind of looking around to see like, all right, where are those goddamn eyes? Where's the boogeyman at? Another creative element the film uses is its use of closet doors. A closet door will be shut. An actor will walk in the room. It's still shut. They'll leave the room. They'll come back. The door's open. Who opened the door? Was it the boogeyman? But there's only flashes of that, and a lot of the times it gets bogged down by a lot of these sequences turning into just jump scares, which is a bummer because I feel like horror films have been great lately, and a lot of the reason that is because I feel like they're not doing the jump scare thing. And I feel like doing the jump scare thing can make your horror film feel very generic, and that's what happens here, which is unfortunate because there are a lot of fun sequences where they have to use candles or flashes from a video game to see the boogeyman or get away from the boogeyman. And it's like there's these flashes of creativity, but then it gets bogged down by the normal jump scare or horror movie tropes that you would expect from a generic horror film. And this isn't a spoiler because it's in the trailer, but you do see the boogeyman kind of a lot. Not like in the light or anything, but you do see like a lot of him throughout the movie. And for me, I feel like the idea of the boogeyman would even be scarier if you never really see him. Like maybe just show the eyes. I feel like that'd be way more terrifying than us actually seeing like its body and that type of thing. But I will say there is a part of the character design that I actually think is pretty cool and a little spooky. There's also some plot elements that should be taken out completely because they don't really amount to anything. I mean, there's something that goes on with the main character's high school friends or her bullies, or I guess both. Nothing really is resolved from that. Actually, nothing is resolved from that. And also the film feels a little bit too long. So if you take out the high school drama stuff, I feel like the film would have been a way better runtime. I get it, you know, you want to keep the character development going a little bit. You want to show that her main character's down. She has a lot of shit going on, and this is just making it harder. But I feel like there are certain things in the main character's life that would already make her life hard, and we would understand that. You don't need to add the high school drama, because whenever it cut to that is when the movie would really slow down, and it was never resolved. Nothing ever happens with that. It almost felt like a huge waste of time. The dialogue here isn't really great. It feels like that generic horror movie dialogue, especially with the high school friends. And some of the things they say, I mean, the whole idea of the boogeyman is a little silly, so part of me wishes they could have just ramped up the silliness in this film, but it does take itself way too serious, and some of those suspenseful sequences can feel a little underwhelming then. And I've been saying this film feels generic, so the overall story and plot, you know where it's going. There are some elements in the film that I enjoy about dealing with grief and how they develop that. But overall, they introduce things throughout the films, like certain devices and things like that, that you know what the outcome's going to be. You know how the film's going to end, especially with our characters. You know how everything's going to play out because the film feels very predictable and there's not too much unique elements to it. And unfortunately, the film ends on a generic cliffhanger that you would expect in a horror film like this. I will say this one was done a little bit better than ones I've seen in the past, but still that generic cliffhanger where you're like, really, just wrap up the movie. I will say I thought the performances were good. Sophie Thatcher as the main character, I thought she was great. I like her in Yellow Jackets, and I thought she did a really good job here. I also like her little sister. She played Leia in the Obi-Wan series. I thought she did a good job too, and I really liked the dad. I thought the dad might have been my favorite character. I like the performances. I thought they were fine. I didn't think there was any cheesiness going on there. I just think that the dialogue that they were given didn't really work for the film. But if you're expecting some high quality horror film like the ones we've been getting lately, because Stephen King's involved and the trailers look pretty good, you're going to be disappointed. It's not a horrible horror film by any means. It's just very forgettable and very generic. You know where it's going to end. There isn't too much to write home about. There are some flashes of creativity, but not enough to win you over. I'm going to give The Boogeyman 4 Davey Daves. I will say the opening shot or sequence in this film really sets the tone well. You're like, damn, this movie's not going to be rainbows and sunshine. And unfortunately, it might have been my favorite sequence in the film. I have to think about it, but I thought that was done really well. So, The Boogeyman. Let me know what you guys thought of it once you've seen it. I'm curious to hear. And thank you so much for watching. Click here to see more of Davey Dave's Takes.